Cool. Okay. Well, all right. I think we are recording now.
Okay.
Uh, that's my mic. That's your mic. Maybe let me.
Do I need to, what do I need to
bring
do?
it in a little bit closer.
Okay.
Okay.
This is a totally different experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad. Okay, so. This is kind of a different experience for me too. So, I'm KMKanDrum. That is Steve Delamar.
Steve Delamar, yes.
Awesome, I said it right. So, of course, you guys probably know Steve from the drumming community, but he's actually in my house. That's right, that's awesome. So I'm going to be interviewing this guy, getting to know him better, and letting you guys get to know him better as well. And we're going to go back to the original format of my interviews where I ask him a bunch of really cool, odd, weird questions. So Steve, are you ready?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Alrighty, so this first set of questions, they're drum-related questions, so they should be pretty easy. Open you up to being a little bit more comfortable,
Okay.
as I say. So, first drum-related question is, how long have you been in this relationship? How long have you been drumming?
Started in 1985.
Ooh.
And I had been a music fan for a few years before that. I was 16 years old, but kind of a life-changing experience. I went to a concert and was just completely blown away by the experience. Loved the drums. A friend of mine's little brother had just gotten a drum set for Christmas. It was January, and so I used to go over and hang out with my friend, but his little brother had a drum set, and I continued to just gravitate towards the drums and play his drums. And at the time, he had a guy that played in a local band that was coming over to his house that was teaching him to play the drums. And I couldn't afford my own drum set, and I couldn't afford lessons and all this, that, and the other. But I would just hang out and play his drums, and then talk to the guy that was teaching him how to play, and just kind of get some pointers and stuff like that. And eventually, I was able to cobble together a drum set. It was like 4 or 5 completely mismatched pieces that somewhat, and I didn't have, one of the really weird things is I didn't have cymbals, so I stacked up a stack of milk crates to my left, and I used that as a hi-hat. So I crossed over and just practiced playing time on this milk crate. And I remember when I actually got cymbals, I was so blown away by the difference in the way they sounded and the way they felt and everything. And so, but anyhow, I went to a concert. It was a life-changing event, and I started in 1985 and played until about 2005. My career became very intense at that point, and I stepped away from the drums for about 10 years, and I've been back at it for about 5 years now.
Awesome. What concert was it that you went to?
This is going to be the cheesiest story you ever hear. I went to see Kiss in
awesome. Yeah.
Fayetteville, North Carolina. I believe it was January the 8th, roughly.
Wow.
1985. Tickets for $12.50. And when I was listening to music prior to going to concerts, there was one kid that I was friends with, and his mom was the cool mom, and she had been to rock concerts before, and they had all these albums, and 2 of the albums they had were Kiss Alive 1 and Kiss Alive 2, and I remember the cover art being really graphic for the time and interesting and all, and I was a big Kiss fan as a kid, and so that was the first band that I went to see, and probably my first 2 or 3 years of actively trying to learn to play music. I was kind of really into the whole hair metal, Motley Crue, Rat. That was my genre for a while. So
Cool. Totally not cheesy at all. Maybe back then it might have been a little bit cheesy. If you went the Guns N' Roses route rather than the Metallica route, it was a little bit cheesy, right?
Here's the thing that I've come to realize. So, I liked the music that I liked, And then as I started playing with musicians and going into the band world, the guys that I was playing with were older than I was, and so they were like, "You don't want to listen to that. You should listen to this." And then one of the guitar players traded out, and we got a new guitar player, and was like, "No, you don't want to do that. You want to do this." And so it's like I feel like my life has been a journey to like find the cool music, but I've come to I'm 50. I'll be 53 now in May, so I'm well into the middle-aged thing here, and 53 years old and married and kids and all this that and the other. I've come to determine that I don't care about cool.
Yeah.
I just want to listen to what I like.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and everything is cool to somebody on some level. It's all relative in what you like. So.
Totally. I'm totally with that. Okay, cool. Let's see. What is another good question? Oh yeah, this is something I always wonder. Double pedal or single pedal?
Single.
Single pedal.
I wanted to be a double pedal guy. You know, obviously the '80s hair metal thing, and you know Tommy Lee and Tommy Aldridge, and you know all these. I had the Tommy Aldridge double bass video in the '80s, and I watched that thing over and over and over again. And I've had double pedals off and on, but at the end of the day, for whatever reason, my body just does not move that way. I'm a very meat and potatoes, 4 on the floor, very basic person, and so I think, you know, I have a double pedal today, and actually the slave part of it's still in the case. I very rarely break it out. I single.
So you use a double pedal, but just the right side of the double pedal, or is
just the right side. Yeah, the slave parts. It's in the case. It's I break it out, and sometimes I'll do exercises with a metronome and stuff like that. But you know, one of the other things too is for me, when I set up a double pedal, it moves where the hi-hats are.
Yep.
And I'm going to play the hi-hats like the most of that's going to get hit more than anything in the drum set. So in my mind, where that goes is more important than a pedal that I might use twice in 3 hours. So I don't know.
Oh, that's a good point. Okay, so I don't know why I had this question, but it's popping out at me, so I'm gonna ask it. Does your drumming bother other people?
Yes.
Really?
I can very much so answer in the affirmative. So, when I was growing up and I was back to my cobbled drum set and my milk crates for hi-hats, my dad ran a business in the home. He was a business counselor. He would have clients come over and he would talk to them about various financial products. And his office was located in our basement directly below my bedroom. And so I would go to school and sleep through my classes and do all the things that kids do. And I would come home and I would put on a Motley Crue record or an AC/DC record, and I would play the drums I would swing through the floor. I mean, way up in the air and as hard as I possibly could. And my dad was downstairs directly below me, trying to keep a roof over our head and put food on the table, and I'm up there blasting my records and playing the drums as hard as I possibly can. So, you know, it's a loud instrument, and honestly, I play electronic drums today, and that's part of it. But my wife even complains about the volume of electronic drums. She's like, "That is just so loud." You have no idea. You really? Yes, but no. But yeah, playing in bands, I've always been the loud drummer and the guy that we have to manage everything around the volume of the drums. It drives the stage volume up. Now I got to pull the monitors up so everybody, so the singers can hear themselves sing, and all this, that, and the other, and it's just like this snowballing wall of sound. And even now with electric drums, that presents another problem because you can take the drums down to a whisper, but now, being a drummer is kind of like herding. And you're herding the band along through the song, and if they can't hear you, then they're going to drift, and
Yeah.
And it brings up another set of problems. And so then you like bring up the volume of the drums so they can hear. Well, now you've reintroduced the problem that you had originally, which was the drums are loud. And so, yes.
Can never please anyone, right?
No, you cannot. And I've resolved myself that that's okay. That's
Okay.
that's okay.
Hey, as long as you can get to that point, I think nothing else matters.
I think between driving my dad crazy and driving my wife crazy and driving pretty much every musician that I've ever played with crazy, yes, the drums are. I've clearly irritated people with the drums.
Wow. Okay, that's awesome. Now see, there's a reason why that question was just popping out at me. Okay, who is your favorite YouTube drummer?
Good question. I have lots. I think when I learned to play the drums, we didn't have YouTube, and when I learned to play in a band and learn songs, we didn't have YouTube, and so you sat there and you listened to the record, and I was a horrible song learner. I mean, basically, I learned parts that I thought fit the song that I could actually execute, and all this, that, and the other, and so when I dropped out of music, 2005-ish, 2006, somewhere in that range, I think YouTube may have existed, but on a much more, it was not nearly as well known as it is today. And so when I came back to playing the drums in 2016, I was actually playing for my church. And I had all this material that I needed to learn. I know I'm giving you a long way around to the answer you're looking for.
I love it.
But so I came back to the drums in 2016, and I've got all this material that I'm trying to learn for my church. And Sunday's coming, and I need to know these songs. And somebody said, just type in the song title and drum cover. And I was like, oh wow, and that was like just opened up this whole world. I was like, really? And so the first guy that I found was Rhythmic Sal, and I'm sure I'm saying it Sal D'Amato. I'm sure I'm saying his name wrong. I'm sure I'm going to butcher a lot of names today, but that's okay. So that was the first guy I found because he had a lot of contemporary Christian material, but then it also led to a lot of classic rock stuff. And so then the next guy that I found, or that I stumbled across, was Mike Fournier, Drum Dog 69.
Yep.
Plays Motley Crue and Rat, stuff that I grew up on, and I was like, oh my God, people are like doing songs music that I grew up listening to. This is awesome. And then I think that kind of went to Beats by Jay, and he's got a lot of really metal stuff, and then a lot of classic rock stuff, and a lot of stuff kind of all over the board. So I say, I probably started using YouTube and spending a lot of time on YouTube in drum-related content with Sal and with Mike Fournier and with Jason Ozant. And then that just cascaded into there's probably tens of thousands of people that post YouTube videos. Your original question is who's my favorite? Probably Michael Fournier, honestly.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. That I think he's a big 80s guy. I love the 80s. I love a lot of the material that he does. He does a lot of really ambidextrous stuff, left-hand lead, right-hand lead. He adds a lot of percussion stuff. He plays electronic drums like I do. He adds a lot of percussion nuances and stuff like that to the material. I think that he really he does not post like a cover every couple of days or a cover a week. I mean, it's more like a 4 to 6 week thing. And when he puts something out, it's like I know it's something I want to watch because he's put a lot of work into it, and the song is really dialed in as far as the parts, and it's just music that I identify with. Yeah. So he's probably, honest, in all sincerity and all honesty, he's probably my favorite, but he's my favorite of many.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, him and Jay, just their channels are so well-rounded. They got everything going for them. Sure. Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Very cool. Okay, let's do one more drum-related question. Okay, if you could live any one drummer's life or have any one drummer's portfolio, who would it be?
Wow. I'd have to think about that. That's probably Ringo. Honestly.
Oh yeah. Okay, that's a good.
he's a very popular guy to bag on, but he is the most recorded drummer. He basically invented pop drumming as we know it today. I would have to go with if it were going to be any one person, it would have to be Ringo, honestly.
Yeah, it's a very strong answer. I'm definitely one of the most covered drummers.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
And you think about too the Beatles, and there are a lot of guys in the YouTube community that know far more than I do, and especially about this topic. But the Beatles couldn't hear each other when they performed. When they were performing live, the audience was louder than they were. They could not. So if you think about their music is very harmony centric, and it's they couldn't hear one another, and they played at the level that they played at. And today, if somebody needs their monitor turned up just a little bit, it's like the world ended 2 years ago. I mean, it's like these guys they kept time by seeing how the pace that each other was rocking at. You know, I mean, the Beatles and Ringo, absolutely.
Awesome. That's an awesome answer. Okay, so we're gonna go to the next segment, which I call job related questions.
Okay.
So they're basically.
I'm gonna grab the water here real quick.
Yeah, they're basically. I'm gonna be doing the role play. I'm gonna role play someone interviewing somebody, and you're gonna be role playing the person interviewing for a job.
I don't think I'm gonna get the job. But go ahead.
Well, you never know.
You never know.
What are your strengths?
My strengths are, I work hard at things. I'm sitting down, so if you know, because we're in the same room together, but I'm not a tall person. I'm not a smart person. I'm not a good-looking person. I am a very average person, and anything in life that I've ever succeeded at is because of work ethic and determination, and honestly too, probably a sense of humor, a sense of humility and a sense of levity, and working at things, but also enjoying things along the way. I think work ethic would be my strongest attribute, and humility. Great.
Yeah, we were before this formal interview, we were talking, and Steve is putting a pool into his home. I have a pool, and we were talking about the joys and the pains of having a pool, and I was telling Steve that kind of my joy, which a lot of other people see as a pain, is cleaning the pool, and he felt the same way. He likes to be able to just zone out a little bit and do something that shows a result. So I think that kind of goes along the lines of just how your personality is, and just always trying to, I guess, work for something.
Yeah, absolutely.
And get a result at. And I just thought that was I wanted to bring that up from our conversation.
When I was a kid, my mom always jokes and said that I was like born at like 40 or something like that. and so when I was a kid, there was this toy, and I'm thinking that I was probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 or 4 years old. I was up and walking around. It was these little things. They were called pop beads, but they were like little shapes that like plugged into one another, and you could make like a string of them. And I'm imagining that I saw my dad out watering the garden or watering the grass or something like that, and he would pull the hose and water, and pull the hose and water. And so I put all these pop beads together in the form of a hose, and I was like walking around the house, but they would like separate, they would fall apart, and I would like have a meltdown, like breakdown over this. But the thing was I was watching my dad do something, and I was emulating working. We had this is like 1972, 1973, somewhere in that range. We had a lawnmower that broke, and so Dad went to the store and he got a new lawnmower, and so we still had the old lawnmower, and I would push the old lawnmower around the yard like I was like I was cutting the grass. Now, when I became like 14 or 15 years old and they wanted me to cut the grass, the novelty was long gone. But when I was 5, it was cool. And so they actually like took the spark plug out of the broken lawnmower because they were afraid that I was going to figure out a way to get the thing started.
Huh.
So I have worked at things all my life, which is both a blessing and a curse. I also tell my wife I can beat the fun out of anything. So anyhow.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Okay. On the flip side, what are your weaknesses?
Lots of them. I'm not the tallest. I'm not the strongest. I'm not the smartest. Man, that's a really long list. But but I think at the end of the day, in the 80s, Robin Williams, the comedian, was doing a stand-up comedy routine that was aired on, I think it was on HBO or something like that at the time. And Robin had been on Mork and Mindy. Actually, I think the Mork from Ork character started on Happy Days, and then he got his own show on Mork and Mindy. It ran for several years, and then it got canceled. And so he's doing this stand-up routine after Mork and Mindy's been canceled, and he made some joke about, I clawed my way to the middle and I clawed my way back down. And so that's always just kind of stuck with me. I think I always kind of claw my way along, but weaknesses, man, they are too many to list.
Well, how about any that you've benefited from?
I think I've benefited from all of them because it's made me work harder.
Yeah.
It's made me it's made me work harder. If I succeeded at anything, it was not because of skill or some natural talent. It was just because of perseverance.
That's such a great point. I was telling my nanny upstairs just before you got here. I'm thinking about putting her into some sort of daycare or whatnot fairly soon, because I want her to be, with other kids.
Yes.
Right now, she gets praised by me, by her family. She's never had a kid be mean to her. Mm-hmm. And as much as I hate the thought of somebody being mean to her, she needs for that to happen.
Sure, absolutely.
Because she needs that, what do you call it, the adversity of life.
Sure.
And I think for you, guys like you and me, who aren't, the brightest or the most good-looking or the tallest or the strongest, I think it's adversity that
absolutely
drives us and keeps us going and makes us better.
And obviously this is intended to be a video on YouTube, and will probably be there in one shape or form here and forevermore. However, in the context of today's world, obviously we're coming out of the coronavirus phase of everyone being 20 feet apart and blah blah blah, all this, that, and the other. But you're right. I mean, there is a lot to being able to work with others and be in a world that is not just your own little bubble. Absolutely. Yeah. And furthermore, I'm a step parent. I'm not a biological parent, and I'm relatively new to the game. I've been a step parent now at this point for 6 or 7 years, and it's the most important thing. It's the most important thing you're ever going to do. It's the most important project that you're ever going to be a part of, and you're not going to know the results for decades. But by the same token, you can't dwell on every single decision, because certain things are gonna go wrong. But you're right. I think I'm like swirling all around your point. You've got to have adversity. You've got to have adversity in order to succeed. And I watched an interview, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, off topic, but sort of on topic too. And they were interviewing this lady, and I have no idea what her name was, but she is the CEO of a major corporation. And they were saying, what was the secret to your success? How how did you become a successful female business person? And her answer was that when she was growing up, mom and dad sat the kids down every night and they had dinner together. And when they had dinner together, they had conversation, and dad would ask every night, what did you fail at today? And the point of his question was not, you shouldn't fail at things. The point of he expected everyone at the table to have failed at something today. And the point is, if you're not failing, you're not trying. And if you're not trying, you're never going to succeed. And I think we live in a world where we're all scared to try. We're all scared we can't get out of our own way because we don't try, because failure is looked at as such a bad thing. But really, it's just steps in the journey.
Yeah.
I had a point in my career where I worked in sales, and one of the things that I learned in sales is no really doesn't mean no. It just means not right now. So which means you got to keep coming back and asking the question. But you've got to have a lot of no's in the path to get to that one yes that propels things forward.
Yeah, and I think it's even harder now because all you see on social media is just everyone's successes. Nobody posts.
Oh, it's highly edited. Yes,
yeah.
Yes. Which, by the way, there are guys that are like, I only post first takes. That's not me.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, whatever I uploaded was not the first take. Even as bad as that is, you should have seen the first 50. Because that was some ugly stuff. But but it's a journey, man. You gotta put yourself out there. You gotta try, and some things work out and some things don't.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I even started doing a take meter, where I just on my video I'll say, it took me like 10, 15, 20 tries to do.
Right.
Because really, it's like, to your point, it's about the journey. It's not just about looking perfect and whatever. Yeah, the perfect take or the best take is up there, but there's so much. I'm a literary guy, so I like one of my favorite guys is Hemingway, and he always preached that all people see is the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
See
Right.
work that went into it.
I would agree with that.
So yeah, that's awesome. So you got the job. Let's move on.
So I was the only candidate. Okay.
I won't go into that. But, okay, so this next question, really I'm speeding through these written down questions because I want to get into what I really want to talk about, which is later on. But this section is called speed dating questions. So
oh dear.
If you were at a speed dating event, these are some of the questions that might be asked. Are you a meat eater or a vegetarian?
I'm a meat eater.
Meat eater.
Yes.
Anything you don't eat?
Yeah, lots of things. I'm not an adventurous eater at all. I'm very much a meat and potatoes. I definitely just in common foods. I don't like. I would not eat liver. I had it as a kid, and not good experiences. I'm not a huge fish person. I like tuna. I like shrimp and scallops. I like lobster and crab. When I, once again, kid, we were traveling. My dad was in textiles. We went to Jakarta, Indonesia for 3 years from 1972 to 1976. I was 5 when we went over. I was 8 when we came back. When we came home every summer, and we went. So we were back and forth. And we tried to go a different way every time. The company was paying for us to go back and forth. We tried to go a different way every time so we could see different parts of the world and experience different things. And when we went the first time, we went through somewhere in Asia, and I'm not even going to begin to try to guess where we were. But we're dealing with jet lag, and my mom and dad are traveling. I was 5, and my sister's 6 years older than me, so she was 11. So they're traveling with children, and there's all these dynamics to it. And so we go to this restaurant, and they're like, just order something. And so they, at the time, I was a big, I liked seafood. I liked fish. I was a young kid. I always liked fish. And so they just got me the fish. Well, this thing came out, and it was the whole fish head on. And it kind of ruined it for me. Like I say, I do eat tuna now, but I'm not a big seafood person. And I'm not a big, in my job, I travel a lot and I go to a lot of different places, and people are like, "Oh, you got to check out this cuisine here," and I'm like, "No, we're cool, man. I'll take a chicken sandwich and a banana, or something, just really common vanilla. I'm just not very, very adventurous."
Yeah, that's my wife is the same way, so I totally get it. I've tried to get her so many times to eat different kinds of things. Fish is a good example. But yeah, it's just sometimes you just let them be.
Well, yeah, and I recognize too, though, as I am hurtling rapidly through middle age, health is a big, it's a big issue. The older I get, it's a bigger and bigger issue, and so I do recognize the health benefits of seafood, and I do recognize the detriments of beef and other things. But I still like what I like. But I do try to be mindful. I'm probably more mindful now of my diet than I've ever been. That being said, I'm mindful of my diet to the point that I had a large meatball sandwich for lunch with chips.
Yeah. So that brings up a interesting side question, because I have. The doctors diagnosed me with fatty liver disease.
Okay.
Which means I'm not supposed to eat stuff like red meat, not supposed to eat sugary stuff.
Right.
But there comes a point where I have to ask myself, if I get rid of all of that, is it really worth living? So where do you find a balance of health and enjoying life?
That's a good question. And I think my answer would almost vary by the day. But I think, I think my attitude changes a lot, just day by day. But I think that you do have to value your health, and take care of yourself as much as you can for as long as you can, and try to have the best quality of life that you possibly can. My dad died at a relatively, well, he didn't die. He was 72 when he died, but he was 58 when he got sick, and he spent his last 12 plus years in a nursing home. And so and it had a horrible quality of life. And so I do recognize the importance of taking care of yourself, and trying to, because once things go downhill, they really go downhill. And it's, it's not a good thing. I think in terms of the whole diet, exercise mix, I think I lean more towards exercise. And it's kind of like, you could use the same analogies with finances. I don't need to control what I spend. I just need to make more.
Yeah.
Which that's a whole other. I don't believe that at all. I'm just using that as a joking example. But I think I get caught in that trap where I'm like, well, I can continue to eat these foods that I know that I shouldn't eat, but I'll just spend an hour on the treadmill and it'll all balance out. I think I lean more towards the exercise side. My wife's completely the opposite. She's very sedentary, but she consumes like no calories. I mean, it's like she has like a peanut and a grape for lunch, and I'm like, that was one way to go.
Yeah. I don't know if I could do that.
No. But anyhow.
All right.
But by the numbers, she is like 10,000 times healthier than I am. So
yeah,
it's working.
Yeah, it's such a strange thing. I mean, when you say, the last few years of your dad's life wasn't the best, it really does put things into perspective. Like,
sure.
Right now, as we get older, you start to feel your mortality.
Absolutely.
When you're a kid, you feel invincible.
Absolutely.
So right now, even though I don't feel unhealthy, there's a fatty liver in here that in 10, 15, 20 years could make the last 10, 15, 20 years of my life
unpleasant.
Bad. So yeah, that's a good point. It's a really good point.
An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. If there are things that you can do today to improve the quality in the future, by all means, you should do it. Hands down, no doubt. That would be my honest, cut through the BS answer. Would be. Yeah.
I'm gonna get this out of the camera. Alrighty.
Right.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. So, would you rather go camping or stay in a hotel?
Hotel.
Oh.
Hotel. I'm I'm not an outdoorsy guy at all. Now I will say with the coronavirus, I have become much more. I really look forward to going outside, and I've taken up golf just because it gets me outside. I can. There's a public 9-hole course 10 minutes from the house. They charge $10, and you can walk all day. You can walk as many times around the course as you want to go, and so I'll typically walk 27 or 36 holes on that course. I'm not any good. I'm horrible, but it gets me outside and it gets me away from the house and it gets me breathing fresh air. And so, but I'm not a camper. I'm really. When I was growing up, there was a kid up the street that I was friends with, and we camped in his backyard one time, and so we camped in the backyard, and the next morning we were gonna we had a cast iron skillet, and we were gonna make breakfast over the campfire, and I went to and knocked on his mom's back door and said, I need this list of spices to go in my eggs, and so yeah, I would not be a good camper.
Yeah, you can't just go and pick some grass out.
No, no, I was like 11, and I had a list of spices that I wanted in my eggs that morning in my camping trip to the backyard.
See, what my friends and I used to do, we would just cook the bacon and then cook the eggs in
the grease, yeah, which is that is probably not good for your health.
Yeah. It's probably
but it tastes good.
Yeah, it tastes amazing. But yeah, okay. So I'm totally fine with hotels, by the way.
Yeah.
And my wife is too. So we do the hotel thing. We don't do the camping thing. Okay, we talked about food. What's your favorite food?
Pizza.
Pizza.
That's a it's actually a longer list, but that's just the easy, rapid fire, throw it out there answer. But yeah, pizza, probably just generally speaking Italian cuisine, lasagna, chicken parmesan, pizza.
Okay, so I know there is this, at least in this little group, which I need to add you to our group. I don't know if you're on WhatsApp, but there's a handful of drummers that are on this group that we just all talk and back and forth, and a lot of times we talk about pizza.
Right.
And half of the guys, well, actually I've never really asked, but I know there's a handful of the guys that absolutely detest Hawaiian pizza.
Yeah.
You're not a Hawaiian pizza guy?
Pepperoni.
See, I do both. I don't. There's like a really.
There's some things that are supposed to be sweet, and there's some things that are not supposed to be sweet. And I'm going to go with not sweet on pizza.
Got it. All right. Cool. We touched on movies earlier. What is your? It's probably. You probably can't pick one, but what is your favorite movie?
I'm a big 80s fan, and I'm a big comedy fan. I really don't like anything very serious. But, I think the list would be long and vast, but I think the simplest two answers is the Vacation movie series. I love Chevy Chase, and I love the first Vacation and Christmas Vacation, obviously, in my opinion, were the best. I think European Vacation was okay, and Vegas Vacation was okay, and then the new Vacation that they put out like in 2015 was really good too. But it would either be the Vacation franchise, and or Back to the Future, and so this is a really weird one. Hang on to your hats. I think, especially as a kid, especially growing up, I was a big Michael J. Fox fan, and I think Back to the Future would probably be like the center focal point of that work. But like I was telling somebody one time recently, in my industry, sometimes I have a lot of time to kill, and so I carry my iPad with me, and I've got a Netflix account, and I've got Amazon Prime, the Prime movies and stuff like that. I was telling somebody, I started with the phrase, I've been binge watching, and they were expecting something else completely, And I said, I've been binge watching Family Ties.
Oh,
they were like,
yeah.
huh? They were expecting like The Office or, I don't know. I don't know what they were expecting, but that was, but anyhow, so favorite movies, Michael J. Fox and Chevy Chase, I think, were two actors of my generation that I really appreciated their work as a younger person. I think for Chevy Chase, the Vacation franchise or series, or whatever you want to call it, and for Michael J. Fox, Back to the Future. And I think there's a certain irony with Back to the Future. The movie was set in 1985, and they went back to 1955, which was a 30-year gap. And then they did Back to the Future 2, where they went forward in time to 2015, which is fairly recently. And so 30 years back, 30 years forward. And I think today about our kids and them listening to music and cultural, pseudo-cultural activities or whatever, and think about what life was like for me as a kid 30 years ago and how I perceived my parents' life 30 years prior to that and all. And so I think there's just a lot of interesting things to me about that particular movie series and all. So
Yeah, it translates.
it does. It
Yeah.
does. Too, people bag on the younger generation quite a bit, and I'm by no means am I here to do that whatsoever. But and what I'll say to that is you got a lot of really young guys that are playing classic rock and playing stuff from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and all this stuff. And I have to think to myself, if I were a 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kid in the 1980s, and my parents would have been like, check out this Elvis record, I'd have been like, no.
Yeah.
And so when you have kids today that are playing music from 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, my hat's off to them. I mean, that's awesome. I listen to music from that time period because music is a soundtrack to your life, and it's kind of like a familiar sound, a familiar smell, a familiar this, a familiar that. It triggers something in your mind. And so I listen I hear certain songs and I think, oh, the first time I drove a car, or the first time I went on a date, or the first time I was doing this in school or whatever. It triggers memories. And these kids they don't have that experience with that music. They're just going back and listening to that music. And then also too, rightfully so, they're listening to music of their generation because it triggers their memories, and they're writing the soundtrack to their life today.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's an awesome point. I actually got to know, I don't know if you know him, but Aaron on drums.
mm-hmm.
I think he might be like 15 or 16, and he's doing all the AC/DC and all those old guys. And
Sure.
it's just, and I've gone back and forth with him a little bit, and those songs resonate with him.
Right.
And it's really cool to see. It's probably not as rare as I think it is.
I would not have been as open-minded.
Yeah.
In his shoes, and that's a tribute to the younger generation. That's awesome. That's good.
Yeah, cool. All right. Let's do one or two more. I want to find an interesting one. Okay, this is probably interesting because of your line of work. Are you an early riser or a night owl?
Neither and both at the same time. The challenge with my job is that I'm definitely not on a set schedule. And so some days I'm working early in the morning, some days I'm working in the afternoon, some days I'm working late at night, some nights I'm working overnight. And so I think if you took all that away, my natural compass would be to be what I would consider a middayer. I'd like to work from like 11:30 to 1:15.
So I see where your kids get the 2-day work.
Yeah, exactly. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree, which I very ironic, and I totally subscribe to that. But that's a whole other story. Yeah, I think I'm all over the board, and I think some days I embrace the early morning thing. I think the older I get, late nights become less and less appealing, and it becomes more and more evident to me that because I have schedules where I work all night. In fact, the last 2 days, today's Thursday, Tuesday I dutied in at 11:15 p.m. and dutied out at like 4 or something in the morning. It's not my sharpest time. It's really not. I mean, and then last night I dutied in at Eastern time, what would have been 3 a.m. and I was done with work at 8 a.m. today. And so I do recognize that your body moves in a rhythm, and we really are kind of designed to be up and alert when the sun's up and all that stuff. And when we're working outside of that, it's definitely doable, but it's also kind of going against nature a little bit. So
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, I don't think I'm either, really. But there are some mornings that I get up and I'm like chipper, and my wife's like, oh, shut up. And then there's other days that like getting out of bed is like an accomplishment.
Yeah.
So I don't know, neither and both.
So okay, I think that segues greatly into what I really want to talk to you about, because I think my whole life I've always wanted to be a pilot. And if you don't know, Steve is a pilot. You fly for Frontier?
Spirit.
Spirit.
Yeah, very similar.
Yeah.
The yellow one, not the green one. Yeah,
So
same concept. Yeah.
So, yeah, I can't even imagine the schedule that you have to, be a part of. It's just like, and not only different times during the day, but different times in the world.
Well, let me do my best to start at the beginning. Number one, I am the luckiest person on the planet.
Yeah, I envy you so hard.
I'm because not because of the fact that it's an airplane or aviation, but just because what a lot of people would view as a hobby or something. I don't know what the right terminology would be, but something that is really good. That's a job and a career path for me.
Yeah.
And so I am very I'm very thankful for the opportunities that I've had, and for the directions that that life has taken me in. And so when I say, well, I had to go to work at 11:15 at night, or at 3 o'clock in the morning, or whatever, those are physiological challenges to overcome. They're not the end of the world. They're just your body kind of tells you when to go to bed and when to get up and when to do this and when to do that, and you just kind of have to work with all that. But I love what I do. I mean, and I recognize too. I came to aviation later in life. I'm a career changer. My grandfather started flying in 1929, and he flew all the way to 1992. He had like that's probably roughly a 60 or 70 year career in aviation. And he was flying in 1929. He was a pioneer to aviation. And so let's say I grew up in an aviation family. He was my mom's dad, my grandfather. His son, my uncle, flew for an airline starting in the 60s through the mid to late 80s, and then he medicaled out. And so I came to, so when I was growing up as a kid, and also too, we traveled, and so we were off of airplanes, and so I grew up kind of gravitating towards aviation. But my parents always told me, well, if you want to be a pilot, you need to get good grades in school. I was like, well, I guess I'm not going to fly. About those drums. So I came to aviation much later in life. And right now, mandatory retirement age for pilots is 65. It used to be 60. It got extended to 65 in 2007. There's debate. It could get extended another year or two. But there's a finite point that you can't do this past. There's a finite beginning point. There's a finite ending point. And honestly, too, I have to go to the doctor every 6 months and complete a medical certificate. And at some point, they could pull that. I mean, they could take that away, and the music's over. So I enjoy what I do. I'm very thankful for what I do, but I also recognize that this is today and it's not forever, and it needs to be thought of and enjoyed as such.
Yeah.
But and there's I don't know a good way to get at this, but I work 15 days a month. So I'm off. The flip side is I'm off 15 days a month. So I'm like kind of semi-retired now.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally work half the time, and so and those are broken up into chunks. I go to work for 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 days in a row, and then I come home for 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 days in a row, and that's just kind of the way my month runs. But generally speaking, when it's time for me to go to work, my wife happily boots me right out the door. And when it's time for me to come home, I'm very eager and happy to come home and do the things that I do at the house. So
That's awesome. It's kind of like being a drummer on tour, but in a more
it
condensed.
kind of is in certain ways, because I really do, go to a lot of different places, and I'm trying to think of a good, I don't know. Two, we get geared into certain things. When we go to this town, we stay in this hotel, and there's this restaurant that I like going to or whatever. And if there's like the slightest little change, like they changed hotels. What? They changed hotels? Are you kidding me? Come on, man. So anyhow, I digress.
So is Spirit just national?
Continental U.S., Caribbean, Central and Latin America. We go as far south as Lima, Peru is I think the furthest into South America as we go. We don't go into Canada. We've got some destinations along the northern border of the country. I guess the furthest northwest we go is Seattle, Minneapolis, Chicago. We're starting service to Milwaukee soon, so kind of coming across the top of the country. And we go to Niagara in Buffalo, and that draws some Canadian business. And I want to say there's something on the northeastern tip too, but I'm stuck for an example of the city. But nonetheless, we're basically the northern part of the United States south.
Huh.
I want to say, the whole number of destinations thing has kind of changed because the route map was growing, and then COVID happened and it contracted, and now it's kind of branching back out again, and then it's very dynamic. And I feel like our schedules, the markets that we serve and the frequency with which we serve them changes so much. I don't know. They do something one day, they either make money or they don't. They don't make money, they move on to something else.
Yeah.
So.
Huh. That's crazy. Yeah, I have no fear of talking about a different industry on a drum channel, because I'm pretty sure every drummer thinks that any pilot is totally cool. And they want to know
I'm
more
here to
about
bust
it.
that myth for you. I am here to completely destroy all preconceived. Yeah, I think people have this conception that pilots are like these speed demons and these thrill seekers and all that stuff. Let me say, I drive like your grandmother. I am probably as vanilla and center of the road, center of the envelope. I just I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that other than to say there are a lot of preconceived notions, and I'm here to bust every one of them.
So it's not like in the movies.
No. They don't call me Maverick.
Oh man. Are there any places that you like to fly to, or any that stick out more than the other?
Good question. My standard answer to that is home. my favorite flight is the one going home, and that's still very true. But I think when people ask that question, they're looking for a different answer. Another cheesy answer, my favorite overnight for the longest time has been Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Why? Because it's 3 hours from where I live, and that's where I vacationed as a kid. It's nostalgic. I walk around, and we go, like I just said, we go into Central and South America, and I mean, we're certainly not going all over the world, but we're covering a pretty decent segment of geography and a lot of different types of places. But my favorite place to go is 3 hours from home, because it's where I vacationed as a kid, and I walk down the street and I think about being 8 years old and going to the beach. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
So you've obviously traveled a bit, and I'm sure within your traveling, it's not just like going to the hotel. You get to experience a little bit, right?
Yes and no. So most pilots, there are like a couple of different standard career paths, and one that everybody always assumes is military, which by the way I'm not military. But another career path is what's called regional airlines, and it's these smaller airlines that do feed for larger airlines. For instance, like you take like a United or American or Delta, and they have probably 6 or 8 different companies that they contract to that basically feed their hubs and bring all these people into the hubs for their big flights, overseas or to different points in the country. And so I say that to say I was a regional airline pilot first before I went to work for Spirit. And regional airline pilots have what we would call the worst quality of life. They have the toughest schedules, they have the least amount of days off, they have the shortest layovers, and so and you're going to a lot of really small communities. And I'm certainly not. I recognize this is going on YouTube, and anybody from anywhere could be watching this. And I'm not looking to bag on any community by any stretch of imagination. And in fact, I'm probably propping things up more. But we would overnight in Clarksburg, West Virginia. Actually, the company that I worked for, we overnighted in 5 different cities in West Virginia. I mean, who knew there were 5 cities in West Virginia? but honestly too, I fast forward several years, and now I'm overnighting in lots of major metropolitan areas, and I'm like, wow, those overnights in West Virginia were really cool, actually. So I think your perspective on things changes, but. So I say all that to say shorter overnights mean less. You basically get off the airplane, get in a cab or a van or whatever, go to the hotel, get something to eat, go to bed, get up the next day, come back and do it all again. Bigger companies, bigger airplanes, better jobs, the layovers get longer, but I think I'm still always relegated most of the time to walking distance. And actually a funny story, so I was Vegas based for 2 years, ending about 15 months ago. And so I generally at the time was working 4 days on, 4 days off, and it was summertime. And so for our vacation that year, my wife just came out. I didn't go home. I didn't go back to North Carolina for my days off. She just came to Vegas, and we kind of tooled around Vegas for 4 days, and that was our little summer break. And so a couple of things. Number one, I walk everywhere, which can mean like 5, 10, 15 miles a day, easy. And number two, it's really hot in Vegas in summertime. And so, it's like to the tune of like 115 or 120 degrees. And so when she was out there, there's a 90s R&B performer, and I want to say the guy's name is Brian Knight or Brian McKnight, but I'm not.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
McKnight, yeah.
Okay. So she's a big fan. So I saw this lining up with her being there, and so I bought tickets. I'm going to take my wife to this concert. This is going to be good. I'm doing the right thing here. So we walked 3.5 miles to the concert, and she was like all made up, nice dress, makeup, hair done, heels, and all this stuff. And we walked, several miles in 115 degree weather. No, not good. I don't recommend that to the married or non-married folk. So back to your thing. Do you see lots of where you go? Also, too, you fall into patterns where you go to the same places over and over again, and so then you start figuring out where to go and all that stuff. But I don't think I see. Excuse me. I don't think I see places quite like people would imagine. Another thing being in the aviation industry, when you start out in the aviation industry, the compensation is incredibly low. I mean, like scarily low. And so I say all that to say it kind of breeds a level of cheapness. We're probably some of the tightest people you are ever going to meet. And so we figure out, how to do something and it not cost anything. And so I say all that to say when I go to work, I enjoy going to work, but it's a money-making venture. That's what I'm doing to generate income, to bring that income back home and you know, have my home and take care of my family and all that. So I do get to go places, but probably not to the extent that people would expect. And most of it's limited to walking distance. Most of it is limited to, but walking distance for me is pretty good. I mean, I can go pretty good ways, and sometimes I drag my wife. Another funny story about the Vegas trip. So I've got all these things planned that I want her to see, and one of the things was the Venetian Hotel has gondola rides, and so I wanted her to do the gondola ride. And we went one night, and they had already closed down. So I'm like basically dragging her down the sidewalk, and she always says that I walk too fast, and that's a whole other story. But anyhow, so we're going down the sidewalk on the boulevard in Las Vegas. Once again, it's dark now, so it's cooled down to 112. Yeah. And I'm trying to get to the Venetian as quick as I can to get her in. And there's like these palm trees on the sidewalk, and I go into this palm tree, and the branch swings forward and it swings back, and I hear everybody else on the sidewalk go, ooh. I'm like, I just hit her in the face with that palm branch. So I had good intentions. We got to the boat ride.
Oof. Yeah. How did she react to that?
To the branch in the face?
Yeah.
Her favorite phrase is, "I'm going to kick you in the head." I heard that a lot.
Got it. All right. Oh boy. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. My wife is in fashion. She travels a lot, and she has many of the same stories. It's like, you know, you're on the company's time.
Right.
So they're not interested in you sightseeing. They want you
right.
do what you're paid for.
Yeah, but like I go back to the regional side where, like, you know, a minimum overnight under the current regulations is 10 hours. So I mean, you had a lot of 10-hour overnights, and like this trip that I'm on right now, I had a 23-hour layover in San Juan yesterday and a 20-hour layover in Philadelphia today. So I mean, you know, a lot of times you have a lot of time on your hands, and it's really kind of, you know, you can sit in your room, but there's, you know, that's going to get old.
Yeah.
That's going to get that, you know, I mean, so I don't know. It's a balance.
Yeah. Sometimes
I'm adventurous and I'm out and about a lot, and sometimes I'm not. And then also too, the last year with COVID has been like a shocking, jarring experience of going places where, you know, there are millions of people, and it looks like, you know, a tumbleweed blows through. It's like, wow, where did everybody go?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, I just came back from LA, and COVID LA is completely different on the roads.
I bet.
Than regular LA. So your job brought you here to Philly, and we were able, and you had a long enough layover to be able to come here and spend some time. Have you been able to go other places and spend some time with other drummers that you've met?
Not yet. I want to. This is, I guess this is something that's been brewing in the back of my head for a while. And some of the most common ones that I have thought about, Earl Bennett. You know, our company is headquartered in Miramar, Florida, and we do a lot of Lauderdale overnights. And I believe he's in Palm Beach, which is like, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes up the road. So I've thought about going up there, and of course with COVID, I mean, that's kind of changed the dynamics of a lot of things. Yeah. I know Drum Covers by Bill. Bill's in, I believe he's in the Tampa area, and I don't get a ton of Tampa overnights, but I do certainly get some here and there. I'm actually Florida based now, so I'm probably not getting as many Florida overnights as I have at different junctures in my career. But I know Jason Ozant is like probably an hour-ish south of Denver, which that would probably be a little bit more arduous of a task to get that far. But you know, there are certainly, you know, I do kind of take note of where people are geographically, and kind of think about that, and how can I work some of that in. I would like to do a lot of that, honestly. I feel like we are all part of a virtual community, but you know, I mean, obviously we're flesh and blood, and I think that um, uh, seeing people and meeting people and getting to know them it's all good, man. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
That's one thing that I think is so amazing about technology nowadays, which I know you're not into all that.
Technically
but
adverse. I'm a technically adverse person who flies a highly automated airplane and plays electronic drums.
Yeah. Yeah, very
Ironic.
very interesting. Yeah. But yeah, just doing this whole interview thing, I've met so many of the guys from the community, and it's just it's so awesome to know that you have so much in common with people from the UK,
Right.
Brazil, from
Right.
Japan,
Right,
from
right, right.
all different parts of the world, and yeah, I really hope that you're able to do more of these meetups, because just talking with all these different guys, it's like how it is right now. There's something about just talking about drums and just this connection that you have that you just don't normally get. Like, you know, my wife and I moved out here from LA. A lot of our friends and all of our family, they're all from LA. So we're kind of out here alone. We have a few friends here and there, but I definitely don't have the musician network that I did back in LA.
Right.
So to be able to talk to different drummers, different musicians, and whatever, especially when it's face to face,
Sure.
it's so refreshing. So I hope that you're able to, you know, meet up with some of the other guys, because a lot of them are super cool. They're, you know, from all different walks of life. You know, you're a pilot.
Sure.
I do a bunch of weird stuff, graphic design and whatnot. We all do like different things, and
Sure.
you know, the common thing that we all have is drums, but it's always nice to get out of the drums and start talking about other things. You learn about other things, and
Absolutely.
it's just it's a really cool thing. That's why I like to do these interview things, because we all get to see what's on each other's channels, the covers, the drumming and whatnot, but we don't really see the person behind it.
Right.
So I try to bring that out, and it's always really fun to do. And yeah, I just hope you're able to meet some more of the guys. And, you know, maybe one day Spirit will go international, and you'll be able to meet a lot more people too.
We go far enough.
Okay.
There's like a pilot thing that's like, oh, I want to fly a bigger airplane that, you know, it goes farther. I'm good. I'm good with the current thing. You know, I started my career flying the airline part of my career, flying a Saab 340 aircraft, which is a 34-seat turboprop aircraft. It has a range of, I don't know, probably, it has an actual range of like 700 or 800 miles, which practically means you might go 400 or 500 miles. But I flew down, I worked for a company, and I was based down in the Caribbean for about just short of 2 years. And so during that time period, you know, all the islands are relatively close together. My average flight was 36 minutes, block to block, what we call block to block, or basically door to door. So 36 minutes was the average. So in that 36-minute mix, there were probably some 12 and 15-minute flights, and there were probably some hour and a half flights that all came together to create an average of 36 minutes. And so I went to work for Spirit, fly the Airbus, the A320 series aircraft. And my first trip with Spirit was Dallas to LA to Chicago. And we fly to LA, and we get there, and you know, I had not spent a great deal of time on the West Coast, so I'm like rubbernecking everywhere, and you know, this is really, you know, the terrain and all is really cool. And we come in and we do our thing, and there's, you know, a time crunch to get the airplane turned around back out of there, and we take off out of LA going to Chicago, and I looked at the computer, and it says like another 4 hours to go, and I'm like, I have like literally told every story I know, because I'm used to like 36-minute blocks, you know, and now we're doing 3.5 hours followed by 4. I literally, like, I got nothing else, man. I don't know what else to say. I'm like, are we sure it's safe to be up here this long? Do we have enough gas for this? I mean, you know, so I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this, other than to say that
you're happy where you're at.
I'm very happy where I'm at. I don't have any intentions of going any further. At this point, my goal at 52, almost 53 years old, would just be to continue to coast towards retirement. That would be my goal, my desire.
That's awesome. You any more plans drum wise?
I think I'd like to hope that. So when I started playing, I started doing the band thing, and I did some gigging, local bars and stuff like that. And then it all went away when I started flying, and that's a whole long, diverse story. But it all went away, and then my life kind of settled down in 2016 to the point I got a drum set again. I started playing with my church, reconnected with friends, started meeting new friends, playing in different projects and stuff like that. I would like to hope that as I get older and more flexibilities in my schedule, I just like to continue playing and playing with different people. And I think to some degree, for me to do covers on YouTube for a while was just a way to participate in music. Because one of the hardest things, I get 15 days off a month, roughly, which means 1 month maybe 13 and the next month maybe 18, and it always averages out to about 15. But nonetheless, but to coordinate, just because I get that block of time off, to coordinate that schedule with 3 other people or 4 other people or 5 other people, and then start putting venues in the mix and all that stuff. I mean, it's still really challenging. I would like to hope that as I work my way towards retirement, then I will have more scheduling flexibilities and have more opportunities, probably to do more in the live realm of playing in bars and stuff like that. I think it's a lot of fun to play live music and to see people enjoy what you're doing. A brief aside of that, so a large portion of the music that I played early on was like this really obscure stuff that nobody ever heard of. And let me tell you, if you're trying to entertain a crowd, that's probably not the way to go. To play something they've never heard before. I would just like to hope that I can figure out ways to play live more and enjoy what music is meant to do, which is bring people together and lots of smiling and laughing and toe tapping and singing and dancing and having a good time.
Yeah. I hear you. One of the YouTube guys that I really enjoy watching every time he puts a video out is Steve Osborne.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I don't remember exactly where he is, but he's
in South Carolina.
Yeah, it's pretty close to you.
Yeah, he's
right?
in South Carolina. I don't know exactly in South Carolina where. I'm imagining Columbia because it's the state capital, but I have no idea if that's accurate or not.
Yeah, I see him post on Facebook, and he's playing live shows now.
Yeah, South Carolina's open. Their bars are open and they're at it. And I know too. He just did some session work in Nashville too. I think
I saw that.
Whoever he's working with, they did some sessions in Nashville over the last week or two, or maybe 3 weeks ago now, and he was talking about the challenges of working in a professional recording studio, which I would imagine are vast.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine too. But yeah, it's just. I love watching he's got such a genuine happiness to him.
That's true. He's a born entertainer.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. He's a great drummer, but he's an awesome entertainer and a really genuine person.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, just being able to see, I'm living vicariously through him.
Right.
Playing his shows and stuff. So
right.
I know how you feel. Just to get back out there and get on it.
North Carolina is partially open, so bars I think are technically closed, though they may be opening up now. But restaurants that have bands, so that kind of has been going on to some degree all along. And so there's a place that we've played at, actually a handful of times now. And so our curfew was 12 o'clock for a while. So places were having bands from 8 to 11. And it's kind of a restaurant, bar, pub type of thing. And then they moved the curfew back to 10 o'clock with the surge around Thanksgiving and Christmas and the holiday season and all that stuff. So those places were having bands from like 7 to 10, and now I think as of a week or 10 days ago, the state's going back to midnight. So I think those places are going back to 8 to 11. So I say that to say in North Carolina we've got a little bit of stuff going on. In South Carolina they got a lot of stuff going on. I think they're pretty close to normal. Probably a handful of restrictions.
That's
another.
hope.
Well, that's another thing too about being in the industry that I'm in and traveling around, because literally I'm based in Florida, and if you walk around in Florida, it's like another day. And if you go somewhere in the Northeast, it's like, what are you doing out?
Yeah.
What is your business here? And so, it's challenging too, because I think that different parts of geography are just all over the board in terms of what is accepted and what's not accepted, and all this and the other.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I think it's just like, because my wife and I travel a lot, and when we go to, say, Japan,
Right.
we adapt to their way of life.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
So it's the same thing.
When in Rome, or in this case, Japan.
Yeah. You go to
Right.
LA and everybody's eating outside, everybody has
Right.
mask on. You kind of got to just, unless you're the type that wants to like cause a scene.
No.
Yeah,
I'm a go along, get along, and I'm here to meet you wherever you're at. I mean, if you,
Yeah.
I do. I'm not sitting here wearing a mask right this second, and I understand, but I wear a mask at work, and two, that's a real hot button issue with an airplane, because it's a federal offense not to follow the rules, and there's all kinds of stuff that has gone on with that, but I'm not here to force my views on anybody. I'm a go along, get along kind of guy, and we live in interesting times.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, I think I would be a bad host if I didn't say to go check out Steve's channel. He's got some really cool stuff. I'm an 80s guy, so I love all of his 80s videos. Plus, he makes some cool stuff with the effects and whatnot.
I'm gonna in the future. I'm probably gonna be dialing that back.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, I say that. I'm probably going to keep myself as a cartoon, because I do think that is much better than the reality. But as far as drumming is a journey. YouTube making videos is a journey, and so I think I've kind of gone as far as I want to go in a certain direction. And I think the whole YouTube thing is really an interesting thing on a lot of levels. But I was watching something with Earl Bennett fairly recently, and he said that he did an experiment where he posted a cover every day for a period of time, like a month or something like that, and his subscriber count increased as a result of that. And so I think I'm probably leaning more towards a little bit more quantity right now, and posting making more videos and posting on a more regular basis, but not putting as much effort into them, and just seeing where that goes.
Yeah.
And I think as you know, as a YouTuber, I mean, you try things and you put some things out there, and some things seem to be more popular than other things, and it's really I don't know, it's a game of hit or miss, or cat or mouse, or whatever, as far as what works and what doesn't work, and a lot of times you don't know what's going to work until you stick it out there, and it either will or won't. But I say all that to say I'm probably going to be dialing some of the editing back, and posting more content, but with less editing involved. Another thing too, so I got an opportunity here recently to audition for a Huey Lewis tribute band.
Cool.
And so that's coming up, and I don't know how that's going to go. I don't know if it's going to work out and I'm going to get the gig, or if I'm not going to get the gig, or whatever. But at the end of the day, I think it's just cool just to go through the exercise of trying.
Yeah.
And I never play things note for note perfect. I never will. But for the sake of this, because I think when you attach the word tribute to something, that you really are trying to take it a step beyond cover, where you are trying to really so I say all that to say I've got these songs that I'm learning for the sake of this audition, but I've come to find I don't write, and I certainly don't sight read or any of that stuff. But I've come to find that that maybe the way I learn songs is by making videos of them, and so that's a very long-winded way of saying expect a lot of Huey Lewis covers, because I'm learning the material, and so this is how I do it, and
cool.
So but anyhow.
Well, Hungry Drummer Joey
Is a big Huey,
he'll be happy. He'll be happy
Joey
to see
Christensen, and I want to say he's in the New Jersey area.
Yeah,
I think.
him and we got to meet up. It's about New York is an hour and a half away from here.
Right.
So we go up there all the time, and we were able to meet up with him one of those times, and in Jersey City, which is just outside of New York City.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, he's a wonderful dude. He's
so if you were in New York, to get to Jersey City would not be that arduous of a task.
So I mean, as you know, New York is huge.
Yes, it is.
So it depends, I think, really
Where
on
you're at.
where in New York you are.
Yeah.
If you're in Manhattan, it should be relatively easy to get to him.
Okay.
Brooklyn, the parts closest to Manhattan, probably be pretty easy, but. If you're in the Bronx or if you're in Queens, it might be a little bit of a trek.
What about from Newark?
Newark is probably actually the closest to him.
I've got a long Newark overnight.
Yeah, hit him up.
Yeah, I will. Yeah.
Awesome. Hear that, Joey? He's gonna be coming your way.
Expect a private message.
Cool. Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I would like to meet him. Actually, he invited me to join a Huey Lewis fan group on Facebook, and I got into going to concerts in the '80s, and it was and I was in all this hair metal stuff and all, but so I was under 21, so I couldn't go to bars at the time, and I would go to concerts, and I long-winded circular way of getting to the point of saying that I went to see Huey Lewis in the news. Not that I was a fan in the 80s, but he was in town, and I wanted to go see a concert. And I honestly, I saw a handful of concerts that were kind of outside of my genre in that time period. But Huey Lewis really made an impression. I remember thinking to myself, because I'm like watching like Kiss and Motley Crue, and these people like blow the stage up and whatever other graphic thing that can be thrown into that, and like Robert Cray was the opening band, and so I'm in the Greensboro Coliseum, which is a standard like 20,000 seat venue, and the Robert Cray band comes out, and the bass player sat on a stool the whole time, and I was like,
very different.
But they were good. I mean, they were really they were really good, and it was something completely different than what I was expecting. I don't know what I was expecting. I was expecting that I was away from the house that night, and as a teenager, that was a good thing. Yeah. And then Huey Lewis too, the same but different. I mean, I think Robert Cray very blues influenced and very, I don't know, maybe like a John Mayer of 20 or 30 years ago or something like that. I don't know. But then Huey with the Tower of Power horn section and all that stuff. I mean, there's just some really good songs. And now that I'm kind of tasked with delving into this and learning more and more about it, he had an awesome band. I mean, he had great musicians working with him, and along those lines, so learning to play the drums, I went back in the 80s, and I think it's still somewhat of a thing today, but probably not so much so. Drummers do clinics. And so I went to see, that was the person that was teaching my friend how to play the drums, was talking about these different drum clinics, and so I went to see Alan White from Yes, which was like totally over my head. Well, I went to see Kenny Arnoff also, and at the time he was Mellencamp's drummer, and that was a really that really made an impact, because the way Arnoff did his clinic, very much so the way others do, is he came out and he did this awesome 10-minute solo that was just like mind-blowing. he gets to the end of the solo, and everybody's like, clapping and all. And he comes out to the front, and he said, "So what'd you guys think? How was that?" And everybody's like, "Oh yeah, it was awesome." And he goes, "I would be fired if I did that at my job."
Yeah.
He's like, "Now let me talk to you about what will get you a gig."
Mm-hmm.
And so, as a 16, 17, 18-year-old person that was interested in learning about music, that was like really that what he said really resonated. So much so that he did that clinic in Charlotte. The next night he was in Greensboro. I went and saw him in Greensboro too, and so I look at Huey Lewis. His drummer was Bill Gibson. I look at Liberty DeVito, played with Billy Joel for 20 or 30 years. Max Weinberg played with Bruce Springsteen for a number of years. Those guys that were a part of those records and all those great hit songs and all that stuff. I mean, I think a lot of people look at what they're doing as very basic and rudimentary and elementary, but that's music.
Mm-hmm.
That is the next generation of Ringo.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, totally. That's awesome. Aronoff, he was a heavy hitter too, right?
Very hard, yeah, very, very. I think that's maybe part of what resonated with me was the fact that he played with so much energy, but he played with such energy, but he also played in a very musical way.
Yeah.
But he always sounds like a 14-year-old kid in that he has so much enthusiasm, but he does it in a very musical way.
Yeah.
And I've gone back and tried to do some of that Mellencamp material, and it's actually really hard.
Yeah.
Because I think he was just in a certain place in the beat. I mean, I think that there's some drummers that are a little ahead of the click and some that are a little behind, but I think where he placed the note just conveys energy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, those are the guys that it's always fun to play along to, but really hard to just like be on that same wavelength as them, just because I don't know how to really describe it. They're the foundation, right? So you got to go wherever they dip, you got to dip. Wherever they raise, you got to
Sure,
raise.
sure.
So it's when, and I'm not a metronome guy really.
Mm-hmm.
Like any chance that I can skip away from the metronome, I'm always like, I leave it behind. So
I'm growing into it.
Have you?
Yeah. With the band thing especially, I mean, I can't, my covers are extremely rudimentary in terms of technology, and I say all that to say I haven't figured out a way to link a click to, and that would actually like be a big improvement. I mean, honestly, if I could get a click in my track that it was audible to me and not to the final product, that would probably make a huge difference in terms of me opening up different things that I could play, because there's some songs that are so basic, but there's like parts where it just goes like this, and I'm trying to be here and hold this together, and without a click, I don't have anything to hold on to. I don't have anything to hold to hold the track together. And so I say that to say I do use a click with the band, and when I listen to tapes of us playing like 30 years ago, we played the slow songs fast and the fast songs slow. whatever we could do, we were not doing it the way they did it. But but I do use a click now with the band, and it makes just a world of difference in terms of trying to be authentic on some level. I mean, I'm playing songs that weren't recorded to a click. I mean, with the band, we're doing. 60s and 70s covers, and I know they weren't recorded to a click, but it helps me to keep us in the ballpark. It helps me with a hurting project.
So yeah, I mean, is there any? What are the plans with the band? Do you have any shows lined up or anything?
Yeah, we're playing April 23rd is our next date.
Cool. Yeah, this video will definitely be out before that. So.
April 23rd is the next date with that band, and the audition with the Huey Lewis tribute band is March the 14th, I believe. So that's coming up in like 10-ish days, 10 or 11 days.
Well, there better be some sort of update because I want to know what happens.
You know, I definitely believe in failing forward, but I'm also not necessarily big on advertising my failures either. So I don't know.
Okay, so if I hear anything,
if you hear something, it went good. If you don't hear anything, it never happened.
Cool, man. Well, this was awesome. I'm so glad you got to come by and check out the studio.
Thank you for your hospitality. Thank you for having me. You have a wonderful home. You have a wonderful facility here and a really beautiful DW drum set here.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we can end this video and then maybe just have you play a little bit of something, even if it's along to a song.
Yeah, I definitely used to be along to a song. I don't improvise. So.
Cool. So let me. I'll end the video and I'll set it up to how I do the covers. Hopefully it'll help you out. And,
okay.
And maybe we'll do like a cover.
Okay.
Cool.
No
okay.
No guarantees.
Yeah, no guarantees, but we'll try to do the best that we can.
Thank you for having me.
Alrighty. See you guys.